Thank you, Statesmen Nation, for joining us back here for another edition of our William Penn Coaches Show. Our first guest today, coach of William Penn basketball, Coach John Henry. Coach, we have a 3-game home stretch coming up here. In between that, we have our TP game against Grandview. Do you just kind of want to take us through the tradition of the TP game and how it started?
Yeah, it was, excuse me, it was a tradition for many years before I got here. It was the Central game, and it was even bigger back then, to be honest with you, because there was actually a fraternity that would dribble a basketball all the way to Pella for that game, and then when they came back to play us is when we would throw the toilet paper, and they used to have to smuggle it in. It wasn't legal, so they would sneak it in. Now we provide it. We make T-shirts and we put toilet paper in the stands and everything else. It's become a pretty big deal. I'm proud to say that I actually hit the shot once. I wasn't a great player, but as soon as I touched that ball, I knew I was shooting it. Much like my guys now, we never actually run a play. It's just whoever catches the ball, just let it go. And I want to remind everybody that it's the first basket. If it's a free throw, it's not toilet paper time. But yeah, all the way back, John Otteson talks about it too. It's been documented a couple of times. There's some YouTube articles about it, but it is pretty electric, and I'm scared to say that we never really play all that well. Even the great 2013 team that went 34-1 and went to the national championship game, they didn't play very well that night either because there's a lot of distractions. I would characterize it as like a homecoming game. You know, there's such hype around it, and so many more people will come out because they know it's the toilet paper game, that it creates an atmosphere that's different. But you know, you wouldn't want it any other way. It's a great environment. I think it's the greatest college basketball experience that I've ever seen in my life, and I get to do it every year, and it's really cool.
Off of that, you know, I'm sure your greatest memory probably is you hitting that shot, but do you have like another best moment from the TV?
Yes. The toilet paper game has a lot of memories. I would say Luke Letzring. For those of you who don't know who Luke Letzring is, he's a 6'10" redhead that we didn't even necessarily want. And he started for us for 3 years. We won 3 conference championships, but he dunked the ball for the toilet paper basket 3 years in a row. And truth be told, and he hates when I say this, he was the 5th option. He might have been the 6th option if there was such a thing, to get the basketball for that shot. But just for whatever reason, 3 years in a row, it ended up in his hands, and he dunked the ball. And I have a sweet picture of him. The toilet paper's coming down, and he's walking towards me, and he's got a 3 out, and then we hug. It's really a cool picture. That was pretty cool. J.C. Alexander's tip dunk a couple years ago with Channel 8 KCCI here was amazing. I mean, there's been some really cool moments. It's every year it's the same. I don't want to. I'm not talking trash when I say this, because obviously Grandview's a good team and they beat us earlier in the year, but it's got to be difficult to be that Grandview kid who shoots those technicals when the crowd is so amped up.
Yeah. After
After we take the toilet paper down and it takes forever and everything else.
It's already hard enough to shoot those free throws when you're by yourself on the line.
Yeah, on a side note, I remember Todd Lawrenson. He's now the head coach at Graceland, doing a great job. They're in first place. I remember him. He played at Grandview for 3 years. I'm really dating myself, but I remember, you know, him being like a 92% free throw shooter and him struggling sometimes to make those free throws, and I always wondered what that was like. But no, it's been a blast. I think I'll give some credit to Nick Rule and John Otteson in the fact that it's no longer taboo. I remember when it was, you know, you had to be, it was secretive. Now we just say, hey, we're about to throw some toilet paper. Here you go. As a matter of fact,
Yep.
The toilet paper roll right there on my shirt.
Right on.
We embrace it now, and it's fantastic.
So just lastly here, we have this 3-game home stretch, like I talked about. What should the fans kind of be expecting throughout the rest of the season on the second back half?
You know, I'm a brutally honest guy, and I'm not trying to be coy or smart, you know, ackle or whatever, but I don't know. We're playing 12 guys. The difficult part for this particular team is not knowing what you're getting out of each individual on a particular night. So we're going to try and do some different things. We have to, because we've struggled most of this season, and it hasn't necessarily gone our way. So we're gonna keep trying to evolve and change some things to find our niche, and you know, hopefully we do that sooner rather than later. That's a hard question to answer, Dylan. When you're not playing all that well as a unit, it stings, and we've just got to find a way to win a ball game and win multiple ball games in a row, and try to make the most out of a tough year. That's the best way I can answer that, my man.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here, Coach. We'll be back shortly with our next coach.
Sweet jacket, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. That's going to do it for us here in this interview. All right. Back here with our second coach on this week's William Penn Coaches Show, the head coach for track and field, Victoria Vineker. Thank you, Coach, for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
So first off, you guys had meet last week in the St. Ambrose Bumble Rumble, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, it was called the Bumble Rumble.
And you just kind of want to go over some of the highlights from that.
Yeah, we had quite a few highlights. It was a very small meet, so there was only 3 teams there. So it was us, Ambrose, and Trinity Christian. So it was really a bunch about execution. Like, we had a team meeting right before that meet, and like, it was great. Like I said, if anyone qualifies or does something big, it was going to be fantastic. But it was really for making sure we're learning how to execute at those small meets, so when we get to the bigger meets, like the ones coming up, that they're understanding how they're able to do that. So we had some very good performances. We had a lot of first place finishes. We had 2 school records as well. So D'Artagnan Beaver in the mile re-broke the record that was previously broken just in December by 2 of his other teammates. So I feel like that record is just going to keep getting broken over and over. And he was very close for the B standard for nationals. So we're getting very excited for that. And then Abby re-broke another one of her school records. She broke the long jump record. What was really cool, though, Lulu, she actually broke the record first at the meet. That was her first jump, broke Abby's record, and then Abby broke it on the very last jump. So they were kind of going back and forth. So those 2 are definitely going to be ones to watch in the long. Our sprinters did very well. Our throwers were throwing out some kinks, but they're understanding kind of like where they're going, and they started moving up in numbers as well. Their average is pretty well for on the weight throw side, and starting to understand some stuff for shot. And same with our women. Our distance side definitely hit it home for us too, but it was just fun to watch, because with those smaller type of meets, you're really able to see what they're made out of without having to go up against a lot of competition. So they're going up against their teammates and themselves, and they're really starting to understand some of the stuff we were practicing at practice, and it was fun to watch.
So along with those like execution expectations, what kind of things are you guys looking forward heading to these 2 meets that you have upcoming, the Grinnell meet and then the Northwest Missouri State Bearcat meet? What kind of just expectations do you have going forward for the team?
Yeah, so Grinnell is gonna be bigger than our last meet, but it's gonna be still a smaller meet. It's not a lot of teams. I think there's like 6, 7, 8 maybe. So it's going to be quite bigger. That one is still about execution. Now they have more competition. Now how are you going to execute with more competition and pushing through? It also gives them a little bit more time. I'm not going to lie, our kids were gassed because they're going repping one after another because they're making finals, which is a great problem to have, but an exhausting problem. But being able to execute at a bigger meet is going to be a big thing too, because going into Northwest, that's a qualifying meet. So they understand like this is one of the meets that they're going to have to kind of show out a little bit to be able to qualify for that bigger meet, because that meet is going to be a very, very strong one. It will be just as strong, if not stronger, than our conference meet. And so it gives them a chance at Northwest specifically to be on a 300-meter track, which is a big difference than a 200 for a lot of events. And that's actually where our conference is hosted. So they get a precursor to see what they're about to be on at that conference meet. It gives them a little bit. We were in there in the fall, but not everybody got to go to that one. It was just a few people. So they're definitely going to be pushing this weekend, and especially going into Northwest, because they're trying to qualify for conference and nationals. Like this weekend, our DMRs are trying to go for some school records, and our men's side is trying to go for a standard. So, well, everyone's always trying to go for a standard,
yeah.
But they're really pushing for it, and we think it's going to be pretty successful this weekend for them.
Well, that's good. And didn't ask you this one off camera, but with like how the break went, people going home, coming back, trying to get back into shape, kind of, which they probably did stay in shape, but how do you just go about that process of once they get back on campus and then trying to work them back up to meet speed?
Yeah, so we got them back early, most of them. That snowstorm did us in pretty well, and then our first meet got canceled. So we had a lot longer to actually be able to train, which was really nice and sad at the same time, because we all wanted to compete and we're excited to go to Wartburg, but unfortunately I'm Russian Minnesotan, so I would have drove through the storm, but it was a safety concern for everybody else, and then it got canceled, so it worked. But coming through with just being able to understand where they did, and our team was really good about training over break, because they're just hungry and they want to be the best, and to see a team that's able to actually put forth that effort in the break, let alone just during season, is fantastic to see, because they came back and we were able to go full speed ahead for the most part. Like I said, not everyone's going to have a facility to train at, but whatever they had, they may do. I had throwers throwing with potatoes, like like a bag of potatoes to make sure they could counter. So like they made sure they could do as much as they possibly could. So that was a lot of fun for them to come back, and like they saw the progress, and that they felt like they didn't fall off too far from break, which is always something that every coach is worried about.
Yeah, well, thank you again for joining us here for our Coaches Show, and we'll be back here shortly with our next guest. All right, welcome back to the Coaches Show. Our final guest here tonight is Coach Laura North, head coach of William Penn softball team. Coach North, since taking over since last summer, what have kind of been some of the philosophies and maybe some of the expectations that you have implemented into the team?
Well, I would say probably about three things. We really want to pay attention to details. I think that the team has a lot of skill, and they are super competitive, and so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel or anything, but we just really wanted to pay attention to details and win the inches in softball, because a lot of wins and losses are just inches, and so we're trying to win those margins, win those inches, and so just really kind of raising the standard in those in-between moments, and really paying attention to those fine details. We have really hit the strength and conditioning hard. We're trying to create some more offense, and so I think, looking at stats from last year and watching some film and stuff, they had a lot of warning track power and some almost good hits, or almost hits, but we tried to really just get them in shape, increase their strength and their speed, and so hopefully we have more home run power and stealing some more bases, being a little bit more powerful, putting some more zip on the ball. So those things, and then really worked on the mental side of the game, and worked on just raising their softball IQ, again, winning those inches, but having a strategy at every at-bat and how we're going to approach every inning, learning a lot of just how to manufacture some runs, and have just smart softball out there.
Yep.
So probably those three things, I think, are the main things we've really been focusing on.
And then going off kind of like the stats and trying to learn on the mental game, what things are you like using to try and help the players out with that?
Yeah, well, we at the beginning of every practice, they do their warm up, and then they take about like a 2 to 3 minute pause, and we have like a mental routine that they go through, and it's just very quiet. If you come and watch our practices, it's just like this very quiet moment where they're trying to get into the moment, try to shut out, all the outside noise, classes, social life, all the stresses that they have going on. And so really just trying to be in the moment and focus on softball for those 2-3 hours, game, maybe it's, 6 hours or whatever. But trying to do some mental exercises so that they're really just focusing on softball during those times. And then just some other things, just building their confidence and having them just individually and as a team recognize like why they're here, what we're trying to accomplish, focusing on just one step at a time, and then just really building their confidence, because they are talented softball players and they're fantastic humans. And so we're just trying to build their confidence when they do step on the field, then that all they have to do is go out, work really hard, try hard, have fun, and have the freedom to just perform.
Yeah, and then off of that, you have a couple tournaments coming up here, a few games. So how's the preparation for those upcoming first games been?
Yeah, we're chomping at the bit. We're super excited to get out and compete. They've been putting a lot of pressure on themselves because obviously, like, new coach, and they want to, they care what I think, and they're really trying to impress me so that they can get on the field. But we've been spending a lot of time these last 2 weeks. Actually, they came back from break in really good shape and prepared. I think they worked really hard over break. And so we've actually had a lot of live at-bats the last 2 weeks. So our pitchers and hitters are battling already in these first 2 weeks. We didn't have to spend a lot of time, getting them in shape and all that because they prepared themselves. So that's super exciting. So they're ready to compete, and I hope we want to see all the hard work that we've put in and that they've really focused on. Hopefully that translates on the field and just kind of get the jitters out. The first weekend out is just trying to get into game day routines and get the jitters out and get your routine. And hopefully the game feels slow and not chaotic. And, hopefully we'll be prepared for that. We have good competition coming up with our first game. We play 2 ranked teams, so it'll be fun. We'll have to show up.
I say, when you talk about like the practicing live at bats, are there any limitations to like having to practice inside rather than being out on the field?
No, well, we're super fortunate to have the pack here and our full turf, so we can pretty much do a full infield, and then really just left field for us is short. But we're super fortunate because we can really scrimmage in there and just throw a real ball, and it's just like we are gonna we'll be playing in February on turf, and so we're able to simulate that here at the pack, and then upstairs with our batting cages, we've got a pitcher going up there in the cage as well. So facilities are huge, and so we're taking advantage of that and really being able to take those live at bats and also just have a full infield on turf. So yeah, hopefully it's preparing us really well.
Yeah, well, good luck to you guys in those games, and thank you for joining us here on the William Penn Coaches Show.
Thank you.